Hey, welcome to Prophecy Roundtable. The question, are cosmological signs and perils increasing in 2025? Well, we have a guest on tonight, Jason Peters, who would suggest that yes, they are. And of course, I know this is one of my co-host's favorite topics. And so we're going to explore this tonight, whether this is indeed the case. We're going to test it against scripture. We're going to have some fun, of course. And as always, we're going to just enjoy looking through scripture. None of us has all the answers, but maybe we can do a little iron sharpening iron so where we can get to know things a little better and we can discover what God has in store. So I'm excited to introduce Jason Peters. Hey, Jason, welcome. We are so
we got Jason back on.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, this is the big question. Are things getting worse, or is it kind of business as usual? I'm really curious to hear your opinion on this.
Absolutely.
So why don't I pop up the slide then? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the wrong monitor. Hold on a second here. Oh, there you go. Okay. So basically, history changed in the world on September 1st and 2nd of 1859 as Mr. James Carrington was in England monitoring the sun, and he was just looking for sunspots and activity and things like that. And, you know, we've been monitoring the sun for many, many hundreds of years, you know, since the 1500s in Italy and other places, just to see what the growing season would be like, what's going to affect our grapes and other crops and things like that. So, you know, in Europe, they were testing out the sun for years for what's going on, for activity. And so Carrington was observing it, and then suddenly he saw this huge X80 flare. So we have C on the low end, M on the mid-range, and X. And we haven't seen any X's like this for, you know, a long time. We've seen maybe an X5 or 8 or something like that, but not an X80. So this shorted out all of their telegraph lines and shorted out all communications, okay? And it was a blackout for 1859, okay? So it's pre-electric, basically, and you know what's going on during that time. It's pre-Civil War, but it shut down everything, and then that brought us into this scientific realm that we're at right now, which Jason studies. And Jason, what are your thoughts on the Carrington event?
Okay, I think the question is here, what would an X80 class flare be like today? What kind of impact would that have? And quantifying the exact increase of impact for today's world if an X80 class were to take place is kind of difficult, kind of complicated. With the what we'll talk about in just a minute, with the magnetosphere being weakened by at least 15%, that alone gives us some idea of the magnitude of an event like this. But the bigger problem is the more advanced world that we live in today that's extremely reliant on technology. Everybody's dependent on some form of technology in some way. So, you know, if it took out the telegram lines in 1859, you can only imagine. I mean, you can kind of fathom some idea of what would take place. What would we lose today?
Wow.
Okay, so Doug,
so the significance of this from a prophetic standpoint is, I mean, I can think of a couple of passages. One is where it says in Revelation 16 that the sun scorched men. They still didn't repent. Is that one of the things, or how would you see
up to it,
the electromagnetic, you know, the impulse that would happen because of this and the electricity going out? How would you maybe fit that into scripture?
So scientifically, the magnetosphere is what protects us from the sun, from this proton bombardment that the sun gives off as a result of these CMEs or flares. And then along with that, you have the UV radiation that comes with these flares. And all of that is magnified by the decrease in the magnetosphere. How the protection that we have is just not there. It's just not nearly where it was for say in 1859.
It's
What would
thinning. We'll
happen-
show you that. We'll show you
What
that in a little bit, Doug.
Thank you. What would happen if the magnetosphere were to completely go away? I don't know if a
So-
lot of people understand about the magnetosphere, so maybe cue us
Yeah.
in
So
here.
if the magnetosphere goes completely away, we're talking about a completely different subject. When the magnetosphere drops out, that's what will result to pole flip, and you'll have crustal decoupling, and the surface of the Earth will actually move. It'll shift to a new location.
So, would life at all be possible without the magnetosphere?
I would say life would be possible without the magnetosphere, but it's going to require some serious preparation. It wouldn't be like normal living by any means. Not even normal to,
Could
50
animals
years.
survive without the magnetosphere? Would animals die? Most people would die.
Largely, it's a extinction level event.
Okay.
It is.
I'm just
Yeah.
thank you.
Doug, in Revelation 16, it describes that almost all of the animals will die. And most
Well,
of
the fish.
not most of the
It
people.
talks about the fish, yeah, for
I
sure.
think it's more than fish. Somebody can look up Revelation 16 while we're working through this, but it's pretty severe, Doug.
Sure. Okay, so with the sun flares, the solar flares, well, I guess just kind of take us, what's the next step here that you see things happening, Jason?
So what we're going to continue to experience is the loss of the magnetosphere, and that the loss of the magnetosphere is continuously, rapidly decreasing in intensity, and so what that's going to lead to is the furthering of the decoupling, which is going to allow for more and more movement between the core and the mantle. And this heats up that area, and then that radiates into the asthenosphere of the Earth, creating other implications, earthquakes, volcanic activity. Then you have the implications from the magnetosphere and the atmospheric conditions that would cause there, and we'll get into that in just a minute. Health-related issues, climate change to some degree.
Mhm.
It basically impacts everything. It'll have or continue to increase, and having implications to mental health, heart-related issues, increasing CBDs.
We have a slide for that. So
there's
just
a
cover it
lot
during that slide.
lot of implications.
So the main thing is animals migrate based on probably a little bit more magnetite in their noses, and so they can kind of sense their directions and their latitudes and longitudes. Well, when the magnetosphere gets screwed up and the Earth starts to wobble, animals get confused. And so you should notice that with your dogs and cats over the last week here. From the start of June, Pride Month, happy Pride Month, the storms came, and they have been powerful. So your animals should have been confused. People have contacted me and said, my heart doesn't feel real good. So you would have a arrhythmia during this time frame. You would have mental confusion, fogginess, things like that. So we'll go through that in our third or fourth slide here, but let's get rolling back into the slides, and then we can discuss some of these other things. Okay.
My perception on that is you would see a greater effect on the larger animals, with them being lost or confused, not quite knowing where they need to go.
Exactly. So we've both of us, Jason and I, follow Ben Davidson, and Ben talks about planetary playoffs coming up, the cosmic Super Bowl, extreme weather, extreme shifts, ocean tsunamis, inundations, volcanoes, more volcanic activities, economic worries, job issues, no power, mental health issues, electrical heart issues, things like that. And so he goes on many shows. This is him on with David Whitehead. Nice enough guy. So this is what happened in June. This is as Pride Month started out. God sent us a message. And, we celebrated Pride History Month back during Sodom and Gomorrah, and it was quite an interesting event. So now, as we moved into our little Pride Month, we went up from the green to the yellow to the red. No one in living today has experienced a KP8 storm. So KP is on the left-hand side. That's the size of it. And so we just went through that. Okay. And then we dropped that back down to KP7s and 6s, and the 5s, 4s are kind of acceptable for us. But even then, normally we've never gone through anything like this. Now, keep in mind, the storms have been weak relatively, nothing like a Carrington. And so, but our KP indexes have hit record numbers for about a week here. So you should be, when you take walks, when you're working, you should be more confused and tired and exhausted in general. So basically, the solar storm finally subsided from the CME impact 4 days ago. We're back in the green here. But remember, the ionospheric, technological, biological, and meteorological impacts continue for 36 to 48 hours because you're just absorbing extra protons and UV. So, Jason, comments?
Yeah. So, the effects that we would, potentially see there is, are leading up to increasing in extreme weather phenomenon, increasing unceasing winds, superstorms, coming in the coming months, strong hurricanes, and then something that's been very evident, extreme lightning, increases in ground to cloud lightning, which is up until recently has been a pretty rare phenomenon.
So Jason, we should probably talk about that too. That's bizarre. So we've seen cloud to ground for thousands of years, but we're seeing ground to cloud lightning now. So basically, the energy gets into the core of the Earth, it goes in through the poles, and then it starts coming out in these fissure lines. Okay, and so if you look, I don't have the video handy and I don't have the pictures, but basically, back a few months ago, we had 3 electrical shots in New York City in that area, where there is a fault line just outside of New York, and there was an earthquake there. Actually, it occurred during 4/8. It was the cosmic eclipse, the solar eclipse.
The whole thing. Yeah.
There was energy being driven into the New York area, and we saw 3 shots coming up from the Empire State Building, and 2 other buildings in New York City, where it went up and it forked up, so you could literally see it forking as it goes up, which is amazing. We've never documented anything like that before. So basically, we're seeing weird behavior from weather, and what happens then again is the energy comes in through the poles, it gestates like pregnancy, and then it comes out, and it comes out in the form of tornadoes, electrical storms, volcanoes. And so if you start to monitor USGS earthquakes lately, you'll see the earthquakes are starting to pick up again because the energy is being driven in. It'll take another week or so, but it'll pick up.
Joel, I'm curious, you're making a claim that this is because of Pride Month. This is America. We're one of 180 countries. Are you saying that God is judging the whole world because of Pride Month in America?
Yeah. He doesn't like Pride Month. He didn't like Sodom and Gomorrah.
People, okay, but
I think maybe it ends up being maybe more than just America, because people travel during this time, and they take their pride elsewhere. So I think it has maybe a little more far-reaching than just America.
And have we seen these solar storms at other times when we didn't have Pride Month? Is there historical data to contrast and compare to see if we really do have something that's out of the ordinary, or something that...
Why don't you wait about 2 more slides and we'll show you how these things have changed over the last two decades. Okay,
Yeah.
so pop the slides back up, and Jason, be ready.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
The next one. So these are the health issues.
I don't hear anything.
Oh, you don't hear or
you.
see? You lost me?
Let's see. Goodness,
Jason,
what happened?
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Jason,
Can you
can
guys
hear
hear me? Who hears me? You hear me?
I hear you. Okay,
I
I hear you.
I don't know what happened.
Okay,
Well,
so
if you can keep talking, I guess keep going.
okay, all right, keep on talking,
1,
Jason.
2, 3.
Okay.
And I'll pop this up. Okay, so
No, it says it's still good.
okay, so let's pop it up. So
All right.
basically, Jason was talking about the health issues. And on the lower levels, on the zeros and the ones and the twos, it's really not that big of a thing. You know, I mean, we've been through
Jason,
this before.
Can you hear me or Joel?
I can hear you, Doug.
Great.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, so but when we get into the 4s and the 5s, you start to notice some risks. And then by the time you get to 7, 8, 9, it's a storm alert. You should be careful. And so if you have, you know, heart issues already, or stroke issues, or you're just elderly, or you know, you have other issues, you should be careful. Now, we haven't seen any reports yet because this will take time, and also sometimes the media doesn't want to report on all of the stories. So basically, the solar maximum is when sunspot activity peaks in an 11-year cycle. Okay, so this is outside of that situation because we just peaked probably 6, 8 months ago, and so we're in the midst of going down. We're, you know, declining in the cycle, but still some flares can occur during that time frame. Our shield has been thinning, and so it's allowing more dangerous UV and protons to penetrate us and then cause the horrific weather and other conditions about a week later. And Doug, you may not believe that it's based on Pride Month, but it seems to match with Pride Month. So I'll make the correlation. We'll see if it works out. And then I'll prove to you that, no, this has not been a problem in the past because the magnetosphere protected us years ago. It isn't anymore. So, Jason, comments?
Yeah, so something that I wanted to mention here just for the public is the KP index is something that people should become more aware of and somewhat knowledgeable of. And for those with health-related risk or family members who are at risk, I would, you know, strongly suggest monitoring this in some way. And so I wanted to mention some resources to monitor this activity. So some websites, one would be spaceweathernews.com, which is Ben Davidson's website. You have the NOAA website, which is swpc.noaa.gov. You can monitor all of those metrics on there, including KP index, and it's very, very plainly noted on there, and they give the time frames and all that. You can even get notifications from SWPC to your email. So options there. And then there are also several apps available that can keep you notified of these changes. The one I personally use is Sky Guide, which is like similar to Stellarium, but I like it because it offers a little home screen widget that I can just kind of flip to and look at any time. So yeah, just be informed, be knowledgeable, you know, learn a little bit about it, and pay attention.
And then, Jason, I'm going to quote one verse to you and get your thoughts on it. It's basically the 5th bowl, and the 1st and the 4th bowl, they're scorched by fierce heat. But then in the 5th, angel poured out the bowl on the throne of the beast, and the kingdom was plunged into darkness. People gnawed their tongues in agony and cursed the God of heaven. My comment is, I felt like I had gnawing pain the other day in my jaw. It was probably my fillings or something like that because I was out walking and working, and we were in a KP 7 or 8, and I probably should have been in my cave. But it's coming, people. You need to start to plan for these things. Jason gave you the spots to hit, the sites, and by the way, you know, we can post them again. But the main thing is, if you notice a storm coming, don't go out and cut the grass. Don't go out and take the risk. Just wait until things settle down. And sometimes it takes 3 days to settle down. But these storms are nastier, and they're getting nastier. Jason?
I want to mention one more thing, and this kind of hasn't been brought up, and maybe this is a theory of my own, but another effect that could have on humans and other biological creatures, animals, and etc., is effects on the gut microbiome. And so we've come to learn over the past couple of years that the gut microbiome is what supports our immunity. And so something that would take place is these things continue to increase, these flares, or the intensity of them due to the loss of the magnetosphere. It could have a great impact on that microbiome, our gut bacteria, and therefore just simply destroying our immunity even further.
True. You will notice dis-ease increasing as our magnetosphere thins, and then if we get more solar storms, you'll feel it, people. You will. Mentally, physically, you'll notice blackouts at times too. We'll discuss that later on too. Okay, it's not flipping through the next one. Who knows why? Let me see why. Okay, there we go. Okay, so basically, these are pictures of mostly the South Atlantic anomaly, which is some weird thing going on where literally you have the heavens opening up. In this case, I would call it the marome because it's not way up where the heaven would be. But it is an area in Isaiah 24:18 where the marome seems to open up and allow things to pour through. And so this is from AI because one of the guys, Mark, was saying, you're wrong about your physics. And, you can't have UV pouring through and you can't have photons pouring through. The magnetosphere would block it. No, UV does increase during a solar storm. Specifically, during a solar flare, the sun emits a surge of high energy radiation, including extreme UV radiation, increases the amount of UV radiation in space. However, most of this should be absorbed, and it was until 2023, definitely, but it was absorbed pretty well by the Earth's atmosphere. The leakage can lead to a phenomenon like auroras, and we're seeing many low-level auroras more than ever before. And then on the other side, yes, UV radiation can be increased due to the South Atlantic anomaly, this aberration, where the field is very weak and allows things to pour through, more charged particles and cosmic rays to penetrate the atmosphere. Jason, thoughts?
Yeah, so, you mentioned this being kind of weird, the South Atlantic anomaly, but, really this kind of makes sense with the poles, rapidly racing now towards basically the Indian Ocean. The energy's going that way. And so this is just simply opening up a hole on the opposite side of the Earth with a place where there is no energy. The energy has left this area and it's moved to where the poles are shifting to.
He's right. We'll show you better pictures, but it's still going to take you a little while for your head to spin around this. This is Isaiah 24 talk, and that's the only section of the Bible that really talks about the earth wobbling, being like a drunk, like a watchman's hut, things like that, and then eventually the pole flip. Okay. And so it's not a complete 180 or anything. It's about a 90. And the reason is because there's so much ice and weight on each pole. And so what happens then is all of that weight, once the crust is allowed to shift. So think of our crust as molasses. So you've got the core sticking to the crust by the molasses. And then once the sun drives enough energy into our poles, it comes through into the molasses, it allows it to slide, and it's going to go 90 degrees. So one pole is going to end up very close to that anomaly, very close to, and one pole will end up near India, China. And so India, China is going to be on the North Pole during the next time frame. And poor South America is going to be on the South Pole. So we'll just show you how it works, guys. So basically, again, we're in this gestated time frame right now where the storms came in June 1st through the 4th, and now they're fighting inside the earth here, and they're going to come out first as auroras, then as electrical storms, then as earthquakes and volcanoes, and then we'll see the anomaly move and shift and shape, and then we'll see a pole shift at some day. Jason.
Yeah. So, I made some notes on the things that we've been able to visually see. And some of this is a very recent time frame, and some of it's going back a year or two. But so I want to start with auroras. So low latitude auroras. So
Yes.
April of 2023, there was auroras that went far south into India. They actually reached down to the 33rd degree parallel there, latitude. May 10th, 2024, which we're all pretty familiar with, that was North America. Auroras were seen as far south as 26 degrees. October 10th, 2024, also North America. They were visible here in the southeast. I have personal pictures from this one. June 1st and 2nd, the 2025, just a couple of days ago, we had auroras in western North America that were visible in New Mexico. Then kind of jumping to a previous storm and talking about blackouts. So there was blackouts on the Iberian Peninsula that hit Spain and Portugal. That was April 28th at 10:33 UTC. They lost power. No, electrified transportation, trains and things like that were completely shut down. Places of work were closed. People had to walk home. So pretty significant. And then I want to mention along the earthquake lines, also a series of volcanic upticks. So this was Yellowstone, July 23rd, 2024. The Black Diamond Pool unexpectedly exploded, spewing hot water and mud several feet into the air. And there were some people that were actually walking through there at the time. I don't think anybody was really injured, but it was a very, very much a close call there. And those videos are spectacular, actually. And then also May 31st, as the KP index rose, like we were just talking about earlier, coming into the 1st of June, Yellowstone, the Black Diamond Pool erupted again. It was much smaller this time, but because of the earthquake, the minor earthquakes and things that they were sensing in the previous explosion, they actually had a webcam that captured the one on May 31st. So that was pretty interesting. May 25th of this year, Kilauea, for 6 hours produced a lava fountain that reached as high as 1,100 feet. That's pretty impressive. Lava, a very large lava stream spewing up into basically the atmosphere, 1,100 feet. And the news has just run rampant on this axial seamount, which is a volcano that's 300 miles off the coast of Oregon. Scientists are saying that there's a potential for this volcano to erupt at any time. So that's interesting. Mount Etna in Italy, explosive activity on June 2nd. So this is more and more things that are kind of coinciding with these solar events.
True. So basically, just so you're aware, people, you'll say it's auroras. Who cares? I mean, we've seen them before. Who cares? Well, you should care. In 1859, when the Carrington blew, that meant we had auroras that went down deep into the Caribbean. Well, we're seeing auroras frequently in the Caribbean now. So Jason just mentioned to you, down into the 33rd parallel, things like that. That's frightening. Okay. And so basically what we're getting at is something's wrong. We're not experiencing X80 storms. That means the magnetosphere has to be thinning. Okay. And so we're fortunate right now. God is blessing us by not giving us huge storms, but he is thinning the magnetosphere. And we'll give you a chart in a couple of seconds on that. And Japan is active right now too. And there's a prophecy for July for Japan to blow, and we'll see what happens there. So let's pop it to the next one. Doug, if you could pop up the slide, please, then I don't have to move my mouse. Okay, so this is interesting because this shows that the insurance actuarials are aware of what's going on. This is an insurance additional rider on current policies that state that they will not insure for any loss caused directly or indirectly by electromagnetic disturbances, solar radiation, solar flares or solar rays, Such loss is excluded regardless of any other cause or event contributing concurrently or in any sequence to the loss. This exclusion applies whether or not there was any widespread damage and whether or not it was caused by human activity or an act of nature. Jason, you take it.
Yeah. So these guys never fail to protect their best interest. And what I want to kind of correlate this to or make interesting statement. So, you have to buy extra flood insurance, and you have to buy that because it's these rare events or whatever, and they're catastrophic. And so flood insurances are purchased for people that are in, low-lying or areas of, probable events. But so these events are known to take place on certain intervals, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100-year floods. And so that's all noted. The engineers, the society is very aware of this. So it makes sense that would be included in these insurance policies. But these events, like we've been talking about, these events, for the most part, we're saying are taking place every 6,000 years. And so for the insurance to include this is kind of implicating something in my eyes.
I would say this is almost crying fire in a crowded theater. You're not supposed to do that. The government doesn't want to say anything. And there's a weird source out there right now. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the guy's name, but basically he just came out in the last few weeks here and said insiders at the government are saying something's going to happen by 2027, and they won't say what it is, and so everybody's speculating. And I'm saying, I think you're going to start noticing more blackouts, brownouts, and other things like that. So Ben on the right-hand side is saying, we should be insuring for catastrophic solar kill shots, solar micronova, collapse of civilization, geographic pole shift, continent-sized tsunamis. That's what he thinks is coming. So the insurance companies are looking at this because they already have issues based on people are dying, and they're not sure exactly why. Well, now people are having problems with geomagnetic disturbances, solar radiation, solar flares, solar rays. They're aware, and they're tracking it.
Exactly.
Okay, next slide. This is going to be NASA's report from 2010-ish, probably 2012. Now, the problem is this was reported and then taken down because this is crying fire in a crowded theater. So this is NASA saying from 1859, when they started to really observe this, to the year 2000, that the global magnetic field has weakened 10% since the 19th century. Jason?
Yeah, so, pretty interesting here that, they made this statement and maybe not sure at the time of what they were actually implicating. And then later on, as they learn more, they took it down.
Yeah. So basically, NASA said this, and then 5 years later, our friends, Doug, if you could pop it up again, over at ESA, which is European Space Agency, once again, you can go to the Wayback Machine and find both of these reports, but they're saying over the last 150 years, Carrington, of course, the magnetic field has lost 15% of its strength. So now we went from, 150 years basically to the year 2000, and we lost 10%. How did we lose another 5% in only 10 years? That's horrific. And now they're realizing it's losing even faster. Jason's saying at least 15%, which is the safe figure. The problem is that was 2010, guys. They have more records now. They just sent up a swarm satellite series to check this out. They're not reporting on it. We're seeing numbers like 27% down. That means basically a quarter of our protective shield is down. This is like Scotty complaining to Captain Kirk, our shields are down, Captain, And so this is going to be a problem. You're going to just notice little tiny storms leaking through like a bad diaper leaking out the sides. And so this is one more report. This is actually up. So if you did clip the link on the right-hand side there for ESA, you would see that they're telling us that approximately 41,000 years ago, Earth's magnetic field briefly reversed during what was known as the Lechamp event. And there are many events, and we'll explain those in a few slides. The Earth's magnetic field weakened significantly, dropping another 5% of its current strength. So they are at least willing to state they've lost 5%. But in the past, we always thought it would lose some strength and then come back again. No, it's going right off the cliff. This is biblical, people. Jason?
Yeah. So, I mean, basically, you said it all there. I mean, they've stated the facts and then they pull back on some of the information. They're tracking it even more now, but they're not letting the public know about what their findings are.
They're willing to talk about the South Atlantic anomaly. This is way back in 2019. They're willing to say now that it's splitting and it's morphing and moving. They're not talking about the pinholes that are opening up, say, over the Iberian Peninsula, which Jason brought up. And so, and there are other pinholes. China came out with a report recently that said that North America is thinning faster than over China. And China has their own weather problems, but that may be because China likes to weather modify. They like to spray the skies. But anyway, so this is a report from ESA that talked about the development of the South Atlantic anomaly. And so my weird comment on this is if you're raising chickens, your chickens are not able to produce as many eggs, and they have their seasons when they produce anyway, but not as many eggs because of the extra UV. So you would need to introduce infrared to their lifestyle to help them counteract the extra UV that's coming through. And my friend Tim Hillis was the one that turned me onto this. So I've been kind of monitoring that for a while. There aren't many chicken reports out there, but Jason, do you have any thoughts?
No, not necessarily on chickens. I was kind of wondering what the chicken portion of that was. That's pretty interesting.
I monitor chickens too.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to get some infrared heat for my chickens.
Yeah. They like the red, and they want less UV, obviously. So if you can keep the UV off them, it does help. So
yeah. So I was interested to mention that because I saw some purchasable like chicken coops or whatever, like prefabs, and they were painted red, and they mentioned that the red was like very important for the
it's
chicken.
The light. Yeah, it's the light and the red. They need that to counteract the UV. Yeah, you're right.
That all comes together. It all makes
I'm
sense.
sorry, I shouldn't have said heat. I said heat by accident. I was thinking of that because I was an athlete years ago, but it is infrared light. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people use the infrared bulbs, which produce the heat also. So
yes, it does. Yeah. Okay, continuing on. Okay, so this is the big slide. This is it. This shows you that back in 1800s and 1859, we had, there we go. Okay, we had 100% protection from our magnetosphere. And then something happened. But when it really took off was 2023. That's when we went off the cliff. And now we've been noticing extreme low level latitude, auroras. So Jason, take it from here.
Yeah. So, like we said earlier, this is continuing to drop off. They're monitoring it and they're not feeding the information to the public. So, what we're going to start to experience all these problems more and more, all these things that we've mentioned, blackouts, brownouts. I think those are the things that could potentially affect us in the more recent future. So I wanted to draw some caution to something, or kind of another public, advisement or whatever it may be. So for the immediate kind of caution or preparedness of the rapid weakening of the magnetosphere, some short-term preparation for blackouts or loss in communication, have a plan, designate a meeting place for loved ones, in case there's a loss of communications. That way, everybody knows if something goes on, something goes down, hey, we're all going to meet here. And then in the case that it's to the point that transportation's interrupted, have some essentials with you in case that, making it to this meeting place requires a substantial walk.
would recommend that you go out and you buy a third world country radio that cranks up. So you don't even need batteries. So you just crank it up by hand and then you listen to the radio, because at some point in time you may not be able to get your electricity to work for a period of time. And so it's biblical, people. So eventually we will hit the sixth seal or the fourth and fifth bowls, and we will lose out on our grid. So but still there will be radio signals, and shortwave will function too. So if you want to learn shortwave, but the big four coming out of the Great Tribulation in Revelation 7:16 would be food, probably water and food, the sun falling on us, literally stating falling on us, and then the great heat. So you'll have to be aware of those types of things going into it. I would recommend the radio. I really, really would. Crank it up just like third world, because we will go back to the third world based on how the Bible reads. Jason, thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think you've covered it there.
Okay, so getting back to this, we've got, there we go, thank you. And let me pop this back up. And so basically what I'm telling you is that something took off. And now Doug disagrees with me. He thinks the sixth seal and the sixth bowl are the same exact event. I'm telling you, I think that the sixth seal is survivable, and that we just continue on, about 6.5 years until the sixth bowl. And then it gets really pretty freaky by that point in time. So there we go. Okay, I'm back. And so what I'm arguing, and it is Isaiah 24. It really is, people. When you dig through it, you'll see that the earth will wobble. The poles will wobble. You will see, this angle that we're at right now will change. And so I'll show you on the next slide. But basically, I just want you to be aware that this is tracking how it's been wobbling already. This is an accurate graph. Jason, comments on it?
Yeah, no comments on that.
Okay, all right. So this is from Ben Davidson again. He has been reaching out to NASA for years. And we all had friends named Tony Phillips. Tony doesn't like me anymore. He blocked me and he blocked Ben because we happen to be Trump supporters. And Tony hates Trump. Okay, so anyway, but Tony runs Space Weather. Brilliant man. But he agrees with us on our side on this, on the space weather. So it was 49 out of 58 professors, NASA scientists that he talks to that are prepping for a magnetic pole shift that's going to happen within 20 years. Then he said, no, make that 61 out of 83. And so they were queried that they believe the Earth's poles will flip within 20 years. New data suggests we'll feel the crustal movements more in about 3 years. So by 2027, 2028. And there are reports out right now, like this guy, and I'm blanking on his name again, but it was just out recently, where he said, by 2027, that's the big year. In 2034, you'll just notice these horrific changes. And the grids can't be protected. There's no way. You're going back to the Stone Age. It's biblical. It's fourth and fifth bowls. Jason, take it from there.
Yeah, so... feeling crustal movement in the next 3 years. So that really takes us back to Matthew 24:7, where it's talking about, the increase in earthquakes and them being in various places. And I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but, I talked some about, let me find my note here, exothermic core mantle decoupling. And so that's basically what's taking place as the magnetosphere weakens, and that being what kind of couples or holds the core to the mantle, that molasses that you talked about, it just gets thinner and thinner. It allows this movement to take place more and more and more, and the movement then resulting in earthquakes. It increases the temperature, mantle temperature, that leads to increase in volcanic activity, and then that can also affect the weather too. So I think there's another slide where we'll kind of jump into that a little bit. But
we will. Let me see if I can get. Okay, so basically, what Ben Davidson and these NASA scientists are saying is, you're going to see a pole flipped. Once again, you're going to have all the weight from the poles right now. So the North Pole, South Pole, extra weight from all of the accumulation of ice, Okay, that's going to slip and slide. So I literally live on the 45th parallel. I should end up on the 45th parallel south. Okay, and Jason, I hate to tell you this, but you're going to be very close to the
Yeah.
South Pole. You'll have to move north.
Maybe chilly down there.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, it's that polar ice cap that's going to cause the flip. Now, our scientists have gone up to the North Pole repeatedly and done core samples and said, well, we seem to have ice, and then we have something that looks like, the Panama Canal region, and then we have ice, and then we have Panama Canal, then, and so it's back and forth. So why did this occur? Well, and Jason mentioned there were these different times, and we would have the flip occur about every 6,000 years, but definitely every 12,000 years. And Jason, should we just wait until that slide and cover that at that point in time?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let me click on here. Okay. So this, and keep in mind, Israel is not going to flip. They're going to twist. They're going to go sideways, and they'll end up at about the 45th parallel north, but they won't be thrown around like everybody else. We're going to wobble like a drunk with the planet. And so it's interesting how the one pole will end up near the Dragon's Triangle, and the other pole will end up close to the Bermuda Triangle. And so it's just weird how they work out. So basically, this anomaly on the south side is where one of the poles is heading to, and that's why we have the anomaly there. And then the other one, poor India, they're going to be on the North Pole. It's going to be ugly. And so this is Ben's chart, but it seems to make sense. The problem is you need to think in your mind how it'll work for you. And I think America is going to be saved from this. It does not look good for South America. It does not look good for India or China. Parts of Russia will be frozen, especially the eastern side of Russia. Europe will be flooded in most cases. So you want, like, the perfect place to live is where Doug is right now. Okay, he's literally in the catbird seat. Jason's going to have a tougher time. You need to move, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
When are all these things supposed to happen? I'm really curious. What are the scientists saying about the pole shift? Are they saying it's going to happen the next 2 years or the next?
We'll notice more signs by 2028. They think the crustal movements will accumulate more in 3 years.
So actual NASA scientists are saying
NASA scientists now. Yes. They can't come out publicly. They'll be fired, but they're talking about it.
Well, supposedly, but
yeah.
What does it mean? I mean, we already have crustal movement. I mean, it's called earthquakes and tectonic plates and just living in California. Like this. That's been predicted to happen for a long time, but I mean, I've long heard about the pole shifts, and they're.
Here it is. Okay. Yeah.
So when are they saying the pole shifts are going to happen?
They're saying that you'll feel more of the pole shifts. And keep in mind, Einstein computed this years ago, 50, 80 years ago, and he said you need X amount of energy to drive the shift. You need solar energy and magnetosphere collapsing. So you need both things activating at the same time. And the Bible describes a few different times where you're going to have this horrible solar energy coming in, and that's going to be the sixth seal and the fourth and the fifth bowls. Definitely, you can see this. He pours it out, the bowl, on the sun, and so it's going to drive the earth to shift. And so the verses apply. So I'll just read it. Oh, how the traitors betray and betray! Terror, pit, and trap are upon you. You who are living on the earth. He who flees at the sound of terror will fall into the pit. He who climbs up out of the pit will be caught in the trap. For the windows are above. They're the floodgates, the lattice, the sluice, like in a dam above, and that is the Marome. It's not Hush Shemaim, it's not heaven. It's just the Marome level. It seems to be the region where the fallen angels hang out. Have been opened, and the earth's foundations shake. The earth cracks and breaks open. The earth crumbles to pieces. The earth trembles and totters. The earth staggers to and fro like a drunk, sways back and forth like a watchman's shelter. It's transgression. That's Avon Pasha. I think it's Pasha. Weighs heavy upon it, and it will fall and not rise again. Isaiah 24:16-20. Thoughts?
Well, that sure sounds like the end of the world to me.
That would be the end of it. Yeah, that would be close to the end of the bowls. Yes.
So what about Jesus coming back? How does that figure in? Because he's going to step on the Mount of Olives, so it's going to split in two, and that is going to move from one side to the other, east to west. That sits between four tectonic plates. And I mean, so where, could that be in conjunction with the mother of all earthquakes? Or, I mean, what Isaiah 24 is describing as the mother of all earthquakes. The earth is going to fall and not rise again. Like, that's it. That's the end of the game.
That's the end of the game. Yeah.
Okay. But you're saying that right now we are in Isaiah 24.
We are in the precursors. We are seeing the energy come in from the protons, obviously the photons, but the protons now are leaking through. And also extra UV. Protons literally are leaking through now.
Right. I mean, I've heard about, what do you mean the protons are leaking through? What does that mean?
Protons are small, obviously, but normally they're blocked by the magnetosphere, but because things are opening up, because the magnetosphere is, let's go back to the magnetosphere. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so pop it back up again, Doug, and keep on talking. So basically, as the magnetosphere thins out, these protons can come in, and eventually they get to the point where there's enough energy and they shift the crust. Right, Jason?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
What does it mean they shift the crust? Like, what does that mean in real practical terms?
So basically that what I've been describing, the ECD, exothermic core mantle decoupling. So this energy, the core in the mantle is actually kind of, we described it before as molasses, but it's actually an energy that's holding the two together. It's magnetically coupled together. And so with the proton bombardment, that energy offsets the polar direction of this coupling. And so as it offsets the direction of this coupling, it basically allows it to decouple. And it won't happen suddenly. It'll be a gradual slipping and decoupling to the point, to some point, when it does finally just give completely away. And we've mentioned Chan Thomas before on here, and his story, the Adam and Eve story. And so that, that is another very, seems to be another very accurate description of what is expected to take place when this happens.
Interesting. All right. I think Scott's joining us. So awesome.
Scott, do you have a question?
Nope. I'm just trying to get to where it doesn't look horrible in this 2-star hotel.
Okay. So basically, again, you're going to notice, Doug, if you can pull it back up again, you're going to notice poor India, they're going to be on the North Pole. And poor South America and parts of Jason's area are going to be very close to the South Pole. He'll be a cold person. Now, there will be, actually, Jason, you might be blessed, because if there is intense heat, like it's described towards the end there in Revelation, especially as, the bowls are poured out on the throne of the beast, you might be sitting at the 50th or the 60th parallel and say, hey, it's only 85 degrees out.
Yeah,
peachy. But yeah, it's going to be a big shift. And so you see Trump saying, hey, I really want Canada and I really want Greenland. Jason, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I've thought from the very get-go that was very interesting. That he's a very intelligent man, and him having knowledge of this would only lead to his want to acquire those properties.
He's going to have oceanfront land that is going to be balmy and beautiful, and it's going to be like Florida. So he wants Greenland because he thinks it's his new Florida.
Wait. Okay, I gotta stop you there. So you're
yeah.
Hold on. This is laughable, guys. You're saying that Trump is so smart that he wants Greenland because he knows that this pole shift is coming and it's going to be the tropics. Are you expecting me to believe that?
Yes. Yeah. The scientists within the White House know what's happening.
Yeah.
They're aware.
Okay,
So,
I'm laughing because that's ridiculous.
so
I mean,
there's
that's
also
absolutely- that's
there's
Trump's
ludicrous.
not a
also-
scientist.
It's not science. No. I mean, the scientists, the real scientists, they're not in the White House for one. Secondly,
They're in NASA. NASA talks to the White
No.
House.
Oh
yeah,
my
you
God.
have another connection too that we're missing here is the connection to John Trump and John Trump's acquiring of all of Tesla's patents and other information that Tesla stowed away. All that was acquired by basically the government, but the individual that was kind of in the know or assisted in this situation was John Trump. And so
Who is John Trump?
it's
Donald's
like,
dad.
yeah.
Okay.
And so he would have had access
Wait,
to,
John Trump is Trump's dad,
Yes.
and he had access to
He
like
purchased
to
all
Nikola
of
Tesla or
Tesla's.
to
Yeah,
to
Nikola
Tesla, the company?
Tesla's information, all of his libraries, everything.
Okay.
yeah.
And so
And
you're
Tesla would have been
supposing-
aware of
You're
all of it.
supposing that Donald Trump must have read those, and so now he's in the know and he wants to buy Greenland. You don't think this is just speculative mumbo jumbo? I
Doug,
mean,
we have core samples to prove that the Earth shifts every 6,000 and
wait,
12,000
hold
years.
on. I'm not debating whether there's core shift. I understand all that stuff.
Okay.
But you made a claim that Donald Trump wants to get Greenland. He wants to take it forcefully by military if necessary.
Right.
Because he knows that the pole is going to shift and he thinks Greenland is going to be prime property.
Yes.
That's just rank speculation, Joel. Rank speculation.
It's great speculation.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not. It's just utter ridiculous speculation that
Okay.
I'm just shocked that.
You're willing to admit that there's going to be a pole shift.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
We've
I mean,
seen the shifts before.
We don't
We
know
don't
when
know
it's going to happen.
Well, he's not going to be around. Trump's going to be gone by the time this would occur.
Then why would he want to buy Greenland or take it over? I mean, why don't you just stick with the topic instead of saying Trump's going to get it because he?
All right, let's go on to the next slide. He's not going to admit that one. Okay, so basically we've got the poles again, and then whoop, too far. So basically, once again, there are these polar fossils, then tropical fossils, then polar fossils, then tropical fossils. Every 6,000, 12,000 years, something like that. Jason, would you care to talk about that?
I don't really have any notes on this particular one. The evidence is, right there in front of you.
Yeah, so basically the Vostok from 60,000 years ago, Le Champ from 48,000 years ago, Le Champ again, 42,000. It's generally the same people finding these. Mono Lake is 36,000. Lake Mungo is 24,000. Helena Pali is 18,000 years ago. Gothenburg, very documented, 12,000 years ago. And then China event is 6,000. So we know that Noah's flood occurred. And so basically, the South Pole has already left Antarctica, and the North Pole is racing towards the Arctic Ocean. We see that already. That's all tracked. Earth's magnetic field poles are getting ready to flip, according to SWARM. That's ESA again, okay? The magnetic field began weakening in 1600 a little bit, but not much, but mostly from 1859 forward. Earth's magnetic field is weakening 5% per century, but now it's weakening 5% per decade. The magnetic field is continuing to weaken rapidly. The magnetic reversals can occur in less than 100 years. We don't know. I mean, we weren't there 60,000 years ago or 48,000 years ago. So we don't know if it's 10 years, 5 years, 100 years, but it's biblical. It's there. We read it to you. Magnetic reversals lead to extinction level events, but somebody's going to survive. You know that. It's biblical. Somebody will get through, the remnant. Magnetic reversals can cause biblical floods. Sloshing, we'll call it. It's not going to be a Noah's flood again. It'll be sloshing, where as the crust shifts, you're going to notice sloshing events. And, if you're sitting on a beautiful spot in Hawaii, you're going to be flooded out. Jason?
Yeah. So not world flooding. It's like localized, tsunamis creating major flooding, but not like on not 40 days of rain kind of situation.
Yeah, God talks more about burning things out, but there will be sloshing going on. So you'll just have to prepare for the sloshing. We read this verse already, so let me just go ahead and move to the next one here. So basically, these are signs of the sixth seal, and Doug wants the sixth seal and the sixth bowl to be the same event. I'm saying they're different, but I want you to be aware of certain things. Like God told the Israelites to, and I'm claiming there's a second Exodus, that they would go to Petra and be in a safe cave. And Jason brought that up. So Jason, would you describe what you think is going on there?
Yeah. So, we've talked about, needing to, find a cave or get into, to this safe place. And then Petra, I mean, you can look at pictures that pretty easily to find. Petra is this basically city that's built into this massive mountain, but the entry is in a valley. And so it's protected from all directions. There's no way, like any kind of UV or proton or heating or any of that kind of stuff is going to affect in a large way that area.
I had never thought about it, but why not send them to the cave area, Petra?
Yeah, that's right.
So it's smart. So basically, Doug, if you could pop it back up again, what you want to do before any of these things occur. So if you have a warning of at least 48 hours, maybe 48 days, find a cave, stock it up, or build yourself a nice little backyard hole in the ground. You would want to be protected on all six sides. So you'd want to have about a foot of earth over your head. You'd want to have earth on four sides of you. Climb inside there, try to protect yourself with lead or something like that so that you can get in there. Or so you make your own cave or find your own cave. Okay, stock it up. But then watch the eclipse and you want to be outside during that time frame because there will be an earthquake before the eclipse. And you just want to be outside of your little cave during the earthquake in case you're in a fault zone. If you're in a fault zone, you're probably not going to make it. Okay. I mean, if you're sitting in Hawaii or the Cascadia, that's the worst one. I can't imagine living there. So watch for the black sun for brilliant signs of micronova. Observe the lunar eclipse within about 18 hours because the storms, we see the photons within 8 minutes, but the protons arrive about 18 hours to 72 hours later. You want to be on the near side on this because if it's an X40 or 80 storm coming in, you want to get inside the cave because it's going to hurt. Okay? You'll feel it in your head and your teeth, your joints, your heart, everything. Watch the fig-like meteorite shower outside the cave because the aftershocks will occur after that. And then and every landmass would move during this time frame. And then 6 years later, I'm saying prepare for a full micronova. And then the globalists are already preparing for this. They're building them right now. They're 2 years away. Thoughts? Did we lose Jason?
Yeah, no. I mean, come in. I mean, I can't argue with any of those ideas or really add to either.
Okay, so basically what I'm saying is the signs are there, they're biblical. I'm arguing, as always, that the black sun is caused by the galactic magnetic current dust sheet. Jason, do you have any comments on that?
No, nothing on the dust sheet.
Okay, all right, then I'll move on to that particular slide. Well, first, let's talk about the ozone or the magnetosphere destruction.
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah,
so
okay, yeah.
In Revelation 9, it says, and he opened the bottomless pit, and smoke arose out of the pit like the smoke out of a great furnace. So the sun and the air were darkened because of the smoke of the pit. Do you think that could be the cause of the sun going dark?
No, because in Revelation 6, verses 12 through 17, it's describing the sun and describing the moon, not what we see of the sun and the moon. It's literally occurring on the sun and the moon.
So when does this happen?
I'm arguing that during any of the upcoming blood moon eclipses, you could see the sun start to accumulate dust.
But, I mean, I totally disagree with your dust on the sun idea. I think that's ridiculous again.
Well, I'll prove it to you in a couple of slides.
Well, you haven't proven it. But the text tells me that there's going to be smoke out of a great furnace. It's going to go up into the air. And then when I look at the sun, it's going to be covered like it's covered with sackcloth. I guess with the moon, then looks like it's blood red, and the stars I can't see. We've seen
You're
it in
twisting
volcanic
verses
activity.
together.
No, I'm not. I mean, this is right here.
It does not say that the sun would be covered by sackcloth in chapter 9.
Well, no, right here it's explaining what's happening, that you have smoke coming out of the abyss.
Right.
Right. And it covers the sun.
But that is coming up out of the earth. So it's a little bit different situation. In chapter 6, verses 12 through 17, it's describing the sun and the moon.
So, okay, let me ask Jason. Jason, can you have dust on the sun? Like, how does that work? What does it mean to have dust? Isn't it a big fire up there? Doesn't it burn everything? How would you collect enough dust to blot out the sun?
So we're saying dust, and it is dust, but the reason that it's collecting the dust is the whole solar system is passing through like a frequency change. Like we're passing from one phase to another phase. So, for instance, if we're on the positive side of this frequency change in our galaxy at the moment, we're passing over into the negative side. And so, like Joel is describing, in this area where the phase change takes place, this dust collects like a static duster. That dust is accumulated there, and so not only is it accumulated there, but as you pass through it, our planets, the sun, they're all going through this phase change as well, and so it causes them to absorb this energy that's there, this dust.
Where is this dust coming from again?
It's from the phase change, the galactic phase change. Yeah, so you can see it here. So just like our sun has or emits a what do you call it? A spherical energy. The Earth emits this toroidal energy. The galaxy does the same thing. Okay. And so the galactic toroidal energy is actually also in like a spherical pattern. And so as the solar system navigates through this galactic energy, it has to change phases. And those phase changes, basically these phase changes take place every 12,000 years.
Okay,
the problem is,
where does the dust come from?
It's just like clockwork.
But where does the dust come from?
Space.
The dust comes from the phase change, from the perimeter between where the polarity actually changes in that toroidal field of the galaxy.
Okay. So, Joel, you're saying that the dust or the smoke coming out of the furnace has nothing to
do with that. Nothing.
But if the sun is already darkened, then what would the smoke do?
The sun is darkened, as Revelation 6:12 describes, as sakkos trichonos. So it's putting on this sackcloth.
Yes.
Covering. Trichonos would be mohair, so it would be a fluffy type of a dust type of a covering, and it will put it on. Like if you put the picture back up again, you can see the sun in the upper quadrant of the picture. You can see it being coated by this dust. It's called either a nova or a micronova.
That's a filter. I mean, that's just a filter. That's not dust.
But Doug, have you ever heard of a micronova?
Yes, I have heard of a micronova.
Okay, micronovas popped up about 6 years ago when we started to research that they occurred regularly. And so basically that's a star that has dust that accumulates on it, and then it blasts it off. Now, if it blasts a little piece off, then that's a micronova. If it blasts the whole thing, the star blows up, and that's a nova. Okay, so what the Bible is telling us is be prepared for a micronova, a smaller blast, but it's going to be a blast. And so that will just push energy towards the Earth, and it'll penetrate our already. Yeah, Scott.
I was just gonna say the fourth angel. This is the trumpets. The fourth angel blew his trumpet. A third of the sun was struck. A third of the moon. A third of the stars. So that a third of their light might be darkened. A third of the day might be kept from shining, and likewise a third of the night. And in all full disclosure, I'm fairly ignorant about this. That's why I'm not even pushing back, because I don't push back on things I have not studied. What could possibly be from a I guess solar system, galaxy, universe? Even if we live under a dome, which we don't, what could cause? Is this symbolic language? Is there something that could cause a third of the heavenly host, the sun, moon, and stars, to be darkened?
That would do it.
And that's for Jason or Joel.
Jason?
Yeah.
So is this more thematic then? And Joel, from what I understand, you believe this is all going to start unfolding pretty soon. And then what you're calling, what I heard you say a second ago is sort of in alignment with what Doug is understanding. This doesn't really, for lack of a better term, go full bore until the very, very end of this age, correct?
Full bore at the end.
And again, it's not going to be business as usual here on Earth when all these celestial signs start unfolding. It's going to cause men's hearts to fail, I believe.
There you go. Yeah. So the bottom line is the Bible describes it as first coating the sun, and then blasting off and causing the sixth seal. Then we get sealed by the 144,000 and others. And then we go in, and then we come up to the fourth trumpet. And at that point in time, that galactic magnetic current sheet moves a little bit. It's constantly spiraling, and it starts hitting the sun, the moon, the stars, and starts to coat them by about a third. And then, as you mentioned, it gets really bad by the bowls.
So
then it's
stars,
coating.
I mean, are we talking all the stars?
You'll just notice that a third of their light will be less because of the dust out there. And it's not dust here, it's dust out in the cosmos.
Yeah.
It's the galactic.
So what does the dust, where does the smoke from the furnace contribute?
That's something that's on the Earth, Doug. You're talking about the abyss opening up and the dust coming out from it. We're talking about out in space.
Well, I know.
And really, most of the trumpets are space involved. It's the cosmos coming and hitting us.
And it could be
By your interpretation, yeah.
It could be a both and, Doug. I mean, in other words, it could be exactly what you just quoted, coming from the abyss. I'm assuming that may be somewhere in the pits of the earth. I don't know where this abuso is. If it's in the earth, then obviously it comes up out of the earth. How do we really know? Is there any scripture question from the panel? Because I haven't searched this. Where is the abuso? Where is this abyss? Where is this
we wouldn't
pit?
know. We wouldn't know. When it opens, we'll know.
That's what I'm saying. Does it necessarily have to be within the bowels of the earth?
I would argue it's in the bowels of the earth. Doug, would you care to comment?
Okay. Does it have to be?
I don't know. I don't know where it is. It sounds like it's definitely in the earth. That's the impression I get. And there's a lot of smoke coming out from it. And that smoke is going to cover the sun at the very least. I mean, sounds like a big deal to me.
I think my view on it is all of this that's spoken of here, all of these things we've mentioned is far greater than just the earth. There's a lot more taking place here. There's a lot more host, if you will, that are involved in the actions of what's taking place. And maybe I have a little bit different view on who those hosts are and what they are and what they mean to us or what they will mean to us during this time. But, I think with our technology and modern humanity, we've lost touch with these things and we don't understand what they are. And I think discrete remote cultures across the world, I think they still know these things and still understand kind of what's out there and what's taking place.
To your point, the ancients noted that there were seven wandering stars or planets. I mean, that's really, they unlike the constellations and the stars within these constellations, you have the five, what we would now call planets, that were visible and are visible by the naked eye. You have the sun and the moon. I don't think it's coincidence that there are seven of them. And sort of this chiastic structure, we have the sun, moon, and stars created on the fourth day. You have the fourth trumpet, which Doug read earlier, and you also have the fourth bowl, the fourth. I think this is verse 8. The fourth angel poured out his bowl on the sun, and it was allowed to scorch people with fire. They were scorched by the fierce heat. They cursed the name of God who had power of these plagues. They did not repent and give him glory. And so just looking at it from a big thematic, spiral, chiastic kind of view, I just see all these, lining up. And again, they may unfold in a chronological order. I personally believe they do, but they're also thematic. And we see that theme going back to Genesis 1. And then we see the same thing in the fourth trumpet judgment and the bowl judgments. What's your thoughts on that, Jason, how that might all factor into your understanding? Because you and Joel are the guys that study this, this magnetosphere, the et cetera, et cetera. I don't. So from a biblical view and your knowledge on the subject.
Yeah, so kind of hard to elaborate on all of that at one time. I would have to really kind of put something together there.
I'd like to state that as you notice, if you're chronological, and the sixth seal occurs, then the seventh, then the first trumpet, then the second, what you would notice is gradually larger debris coming in from space and hitting us. First of all, it would be space dust in the sixth seal. Then it would be more like fist-sized hail coming in on the first trumpet, then a mountain on the second trumpet, and then the third should be wormwood, big, okay? And then the fourth would be of a large type of a structure coming in from space and hitting us. So these things will occur at some point in time. The main thing is, if you happen to be underneath that explosion, you're just going to die. So let's hope that it occurs over the Pacific or something like that. But still, there's debris from that. And so we have Tom Horn and other people that have talked about Apophis coming through in 2029. I don't know how that factors in with these things, but NASA has been talking lately by 2027 that something like debris might hit us. And so obviously I think it gets larger over time, and because it's how God works, the plagues get worse. Okay, continuing on with the slides. So basically, let's compare and contrast. The sixth seal has its own signs that are, once again, the earthquake, the sun goes black, the moon goes red, the stars fall. I'm arguing those are small stars, and so it's dust, okay? And it's survivable. The fourth angel sounded the shofar, and the third of the sun was struck, third of the moon. I would argue that's not struck. I would say that it is like a Swiffer duster. The dust is accumulated, so I'm saying by dust. I'm arguing that. I'm obviously it's in brackets, but they're darkened. And dust would darken a third of the moon, the stars, and the moon and the sun. It would basically, that's how novas work, micronovas work. Dust accumulates on these stars, and then they blast at some point in time, either a micro or a major nova. Third less light. So it makes sense logically that current sheet, that dust sheet, would be moving through. But then you get to the ugly stuff, the bowls, much later. The fourth one poured out his dust bowl, I'm arguing, once again in brackets, on the sun. It was permitted to burn people with fire. That's like a major kill shot, guys. That's a death shot. Micronova, the big one. People were burned by the intense heat, yet they cursed the name of God, who had the authority over these plagues, instead of turning from their sin to give him glory. So, and that's Revelation 16. I'm sorry, I didn't add the little note. But basically, I'm saying the current sheet comes through on the sixth seal. The current sheet comes through again on the fourth trumpet. And the current sheet comes through again for the intensity of the fourth bowl. Thoughts, Jason?
So, something that I've thought about, but I haven't thought to mention is, we've talked about the core mantle decoupling and, the whole, surface of the earth shifting and moving to a new place. But, what we haven't considered and what kind of plays along with some of the things that we were just mentioning. And I was trying to think about that as you guys talk, but, we haven't thought about or talked about continental movement. So the individual movement of the continents. So, we're saying that it rolls over, but the pictures and the depictions that we have shows everything, it's kind of still being the same. But, what we don't think about is, the earth could break open, like it talks about. Maybe the abyss that you described is massive continental movement, the reshaping of the earth, and so that kind of plays into and portrays and describes this dramatic event that you mentioned there.
Doug, if you could pop the slide back up again. So I did clip this after all. So this is Ross Coulthart, and he's on News Nation. He does the weird stuff, UFOs, UAPs, things like that. And so he said, doomsday theorists, unnamed U.S. government high-level insiders are convinced that something catastrophic is coming soon and urging him to sound the alarm. But they can't state exactly what it is, but they are willing to say we are on borrowed time. Magnetic pole reversal, maybe. Devastating asteroid strike, maybe. A catastrophic breakthrough in artificial intelligence, maybe. Could put humanity's future in jeopardy. He's stating that the government people are saying 2027 or 2034. Anything, Jason?
Yeah, no, just very interesting. It's more of basically of the soft release.
I guess we know that Apophis is going to come very, very close. And if it hits anything in the meantime, this guy, I don't know. Greg Hunter had this guy on. So this is the Black Star guy. I'm not a big fan of, Another Planet, Nibiru, any of that stuff. It seems kind of silly. And I'm not a big a dark matter guy either. But basically he's saying there's a black star coming through. And he says that it would cause global weather patterns becoming erratic, 40, 50 mile per hour winds persisting for weeks at a time, massive hailstorms, crop failure, unprecedented natural disasters. I see those things coming because they're biblical, but I don't know if it's caused by a black star. Any thoughts, Jason?
Yeah, no, I can't imagine anything like that with the firm believer in the technology that we have. First Hubble, and then now the James Webb Telescope, and then all the other satellites and things. I just can't imagine something like that would just slip up on us.
So Ben just published this morning. He's saying the disaster cycle, he's 99% confident this will occur every 6,000 years, and we're getting close to that number. The cycle due now, he's been plotting it. It seems like, once again, he's confident that it's going to occur at some point in time, maybe 20, 30 years off. Happening now, magnetic pole shifting, field weakening, both accelerating, extinction risk, ozone, UV, cosmic rays, navigation, tech loss, timing 1859. So basically, every 150 to 200 years, we have one of these ELEs that comes like the Carrington event, and we're overdue for it, guys. So basically, we're due, he thinks, by the 2040s, and that's what he said for 90% confidence on it. Micronova, at some point in time, Earth turns over, geographical pole shift, tsunamis, and so once again, not a flood, just tsunamis sloshing, we call it. And then Greenland will be in a great location, and that's not an angel, that's an angle there. And then there will be safe zones. The new Valley of the Sun is where Doug lives. The Mongolian mountain range is safe, 70% there. Eastern Europe mountain range, 65%. And then highest elevation of Appalachia is 55%. So there are some safe places. And so, you just have to start praying about these things if you need to move or do something to prepare for what's due that's biblical. Guys, questions? Comments? Doug, you're muted. Okay, should we take a question? There is CERN too, and keep in mind, on the 11th, we're going to get together with Courtney Turner and discuss how they want to release the fallen angels on June 11th. So we're coming up to that pretty quick. Doug, are you back?
I'm back. I would encourage people to not move. There's no place to go. This is all going to happen.
You're not going to open your house to all the people?
Well, it's all going to happen in the tribulation, Joel. So the earth, this age is going to be over. So there's no place to go. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Like, you have no idea. Like, all this is speculation. So there's no place to go. So just stay where you are and keep raising your families and love one another.
One place that's not mentioned is the Cascade, the region in southern Missouri. And what's the name of that region, guys?
Ozarks.
Ozarks.
Yeah, that's right. Those are.
According to Corey ten Boom, God is going to place his angels and protect people there. So that, she said, if you want to go someplace, and I have many Messianic friends that have left Minnesota, we are godless up here. And so they're going down to that area, the Ozarks, to basically get a foothold in.
Isn't that where the fault line is?
No, that's more closer to the New Madrid fault line.
Yeah.
That would be Mississippi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've driven there, and that's pretty close to the Mississippi River. I drive over it, and then I'm literally 2 hours into Arkansas and go north, and I'm in the Mark Twain National Forest deer hunting in the Ozarks. It's pretty close to that fault line.
It is. For some reason, it will survive. Certain people have described that there will be floods.
How do you know it's going to
survive? I push back on
Corey
that.
ten Boom.
Just because Corey ten Boom said it doesn't make it biblical.
Amen. Okay.
All right. Great person.
Yeah,
Either way, these things.
But does it make it true? I mean, especially when you're talking about uprooting your family. And I mean, I would encourage people to not move anywhere. Like, we don't know where any of this stuff is going to happen.
But you live in Denver, Doug.
Well, okay, I'm a higher elevation, but
you're in a very safe area.
Well, according to all this,
unless they pray about it, and
unless
they
you pray,
led to move, then move. But
of course,
don't stay where you don't feel Yah wants you. Right now, I'm comfortable on top of my little mountain at 600 feet elevation, and if it floods, it just floods. I mean, it's going to be a Noah flood to get to me in central Alabama at the foothills of the Smokies.
When the earth shifts, when the crust shifts, you will see sloshing. You will see tsunamis and things like that. And so,
when every island and every mountain moves out of its place, that's when all the mighty men and etc. on the planet are going to say, "The day of his wrath has come. Who's able to stand?" And we're in big trouble, and because Jesus is coming right after that. So I don't know. I don't think moving someplace for better real estate is going to make any difference at that point, because maybe you get a month in your new house and then the Lord comes back. So what's the point? Anyway, well, that was really interesting. Unless
I was
what?
going to push back a little bit. Unless it's not necessarily, again, the sixth seal is not necessarily the end. There are some scholars like yourself who believe it is. There are other prophecy dork students like me that would push back. There are many scholars that would push back. It's going to be fun going through Revelation, dealing with other scholarly views and prophecy geek views, even if they're crazy. But I would say if someone feels led to move, then they should move. And if they're not led to make, God will let you know through, not necessarily a vision or a dream, but through circumstances, through people. I mean, I just had dinner with two ladies that it was like supernatural that they left Canada 3 years ago and are now in Cleveland, Tennessee, where I'm at for the evening. So again, they felt led to leave the godforsaken area of British Columbia, which is practically godless, and now they're surrounded by like-minded individuals. They're not looked at as Jews or weirdos. They're not, they're not looked at as freakazoids, because there is a large population here in Eastern Tennessee who are just, they're they're trying to do Bible things Bible ways. And so if you feel led to move for a reason, then by golly, move. Don't do it based on, not saying Joel's wrong about all this, but don't do it just because you think, all heaven is going to break loose on earth this Sunday. If we get through Sunday, I'll relax until
Sunday is Shavuot, right? So you're up there for the conference, right, Scott?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, I'm up at Jacob's tent.
Okay, which is Bill Cloud, and so it is. If you calculate the months and things like that, the Passover, then our Shavuot was last week. Okay, so Sunday night into Monday, but technically the 8th of June should be the sighted moon, the real Shavuot, and it happens to match up with Christendom. So let's just watch it, pray, be observant on Sunday as Shavuot breaks, Pentecost, you could call it too. And then by Wednesday of that week, we will meet with Courtney and talk to her about what's going on with the fallen angels of the planet, because the witches are getting together to open up the portals and let the fallen angels out. So we'll do that. And then we'll have Mark Biltz on that Thursday night. And Mark will talk about all the signs going on and things like that too. Going to be a busy week.
We have a double entendre next week.
We have a double. We have a Wednesday and a Thursday, because Wednesday is huge, according to the witches.
Interesting. Awesome. Well, this was informative. Thank you, Jason, for gracing us with your presence and your knowledge. We appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, really good stuff. Awesome. Joel, thank you for your great preparation and defending your thesis. That's good. Appreciate that.
And Joel, please, before Mark comes on, let him know this is a round table and not a teaching by him. Let him know, seriously, or else he's going to get pissed when I break in on him. So.
Mark's a great guy.
It's a
Mark's been a
round
friend
table.
for about
It's
15
not
years.
Mark Biltz hour.
Yeah, he's been on these shows before. He does a lot of interviews.
Not on this one.
All right. Well, and we'll be discussing blood moon eclipses and the significance for the Jews over the last 6,000 years. So, we'll show that they have been significant. I can't describe 2014, 2015, but I can describe the other ones.
I don't believe they're coincident.
Yeah. So we'll discuss that and other signs too. He's been talking about war, and well, we've got war right now. So, and many places in the world. So, So anyway, it'll be interesting.
Elon and Trump are Exhibit A of the current war.
They're at war. I think that's all a bunch of show that they just want to do this. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, this is an interesting world, interesting time in the world. We have the Abraham Accords that are kind of getting moving, and if they increase, we'll see. But obviously, it's going to take some time before there would be an increase of the Abraham Accords, and we would have that big peace deal. The rapture people are watching for that. And so we'll just watch this fall and see what occurs. It might be a year or 2 or 10 away, but there are reasons why it could occur this fall.
All right.
Man.
Well, with that, thank you guys. Thank you, everyone. We're so glad you joined us. Hey, I don't know. God's good. Whatever he leads you to do. Don't be afraid, because God is in control and he's still on the throne. Till next time, God bless.